a lot of their football games. Let me start off with this. I do think that Missouri had one of the best seasons in their football's program last year under Eli Drinkwitz. I think that it's crazy that in a sport where, guys, in the beginning of last year, Eli Drinkwitz was a guy who a lot of people on their preseason hot seat watch list, Eli was maybe not at the top. Jimbo was normally at the top there, but Eli was easily in most of those in the top 3. But a year, he turns it around. They have 11 wins. Even the shirt that I'm wearing, Ohio State, they play Ohio State in a bowl game. They beat them. Defense looks really good. During the year, they have really good wins, suffocating a team like Tennessee. Now, they do lose to the Heisman Trophy winner in Jane Daniels in LSU, but doesn't stop the overall success that Missouri had this past year. But what is their ceiling going into 2024? What do I think that they could do? I do think that Missouri returns a lot of production and a lot of serious talent on the offensive side of the ball. Even so much so that any team that they play, now we'll talk about their schedule in a minute, but any team that they play, this isn't the Missouri that you think that is just going to come in and be like, yeah, okay, we can chalk up and pencil a W next to Missouri. Guys, I think Brady Cook, their quarterback, is, even though apparently he took a lot of slander from Missouri fans, of course, quarterbacks that don't, the young quarterbacks that don't have instant success early normally do take some criticism. But you look at a team like Missouri with a quarterback in Brady Cook who returns. He had 3,300 yards a year ago. He had 29 total touchdowns. He had 6 interceptions. I thought he played really well next year. Now, can he take that next step up? And if Missouri wants to take that next step. Now, look, you won 11 games. What is the next step for you? Well, it's getting into the playoff and the expanded playoff, having a couple wins, maybe even getting into that final 8, maybe even making an appearance into that Final Four. I don't think that they can get to that Final Four, but that is the next ceiling, the next step that you would want to take. Like I said, I think Brady Cook is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the SEC. I don't think a lot of people realize how good of a quarterback he is, or he's been, or will continue to be. But I look at him a year ago, there are some things that he's got to clean up, but he is relatively a younger guy. Having the experience at that position coming back is a big deal at that position. We have seen so many times, even just in college football, not just in the SEC, when guys come back for another year after starting the entire season, historically, now you do have some that it doesn't happen like this, but historically, they get better. Statistically, they get better. Their teams actually get a little bit better. Now, you have your situations like Bryce Young a couple years ago, but he got hurt. He got injured. So that is a little bit different. But having a guy like Brady Cook, hell, you just saw, we talked about their LSU loss. You just saw a guy in Jaden Daniels that comes back for another year. He absolutely explodes and wins a Heisman Trophy. I don't know if Brady Cook can do that, but I do think that they are in for a really good season. I do think it's the pieces that surround him is what makes this team so deadly on the offensive side of the ball. They bring in a running back in Marcus Carroll, who I think is one of the better backs that we've seen, in the transfer portal, honestly. Now, Trevor Etienne and Jamar Gibbs clearly, are 2 really, really good ones. But Marcus Carroll, I think, for me, is up there. I 1,000% believe that he is up there. He is a big-time transfer, a big-time running back who I got to see firsthand last year, right? Like a guy that rushed for 1,350 yards last year, 13 touchdowns. Now, he did it at Georgia State. It's a big-time difference. But it's difficult to say that to Missouri fans when Cody Schrader comes in from a lower-level program and absolutely destroys it in the SEC. And I think that he will have tons of success, barring injury. Barring injury, he will have tons of success at Missouri. I'm trying to look this up very quickly. Hold on one second, because I'm trying to get his final stats here as well. Yeah, Marcus Carroll at Mizzou. 1350. All right. I thought I wrote that down wrong, but yes, he rushed for 1350 and 13 touchdowns. Brady Cook and Marcus Carroll, along with some of the offensive line pieces that they do have returning there, I do think sets them up for a good base and balance, where I think that Missouri clearly is going to be a handful is what they have at receiver. Now, you could look at you don't have to look far to see Luther Burden, who had clearly one of the best years in Missouri football's history a year ago. 86 catches for Burden, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. I think you could make the argument, is the best wide receiver in the SEC right now. But they bring a lot of pieces back too. Offensively, I don't really have a lot of worries if I'm Missouri. I think Brady Cook takes the next step. I think that you add a good running back in Marcus Carroll, and you can make the argument you have one of, if not the best trio at wide receiver in the entire SEC. Now, there are some teams that will debate you on that. LSU, I think, is one of them. Texas is one of them. There are a lot that will tell you, hey, maybe not, maybe not, because we got a lot of talented dudes here too. But I do think that you can make the argument that they're in there. All of that is good and dandy. Okay, all of that, the players are great. And look, you got to have the horses. You got to have the dudes to win. I am not saying that you don't. But here is the biggest thing for me. Retaining Kirby Moore as your offensive coordinator at Missouri is the biggest win in all of this, because I think he is one of the best play callers in the entire conference. I think he's one of the best play callers in the entirety of college football. What he did last year, schematically what he did, I thought was brilliant. I think I'm trying to think of OCs in the SEC off the top of my head. I mean, you got Lane, or play callers, I should say. I mean, you got Lane, you got Sark. I mean, is he up there with one of those guys? I mean, is he a younger one of those guys? Is he a guy that you look at in Kirby Moore and say, man, look, Kirby Moore's going to be a head coach. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The retention of him is a big deal. Now, Eli could call plays, and he's called plays before, but even Eli, which he does not get a lot of credit for this, taking a step back, having his hands in on the offense, but letting Kirby Moore run this show has done wonders for their team. So anybody that faces Missouri here, I do think you got to worry about them because how good they could be. Here's the issue. You ready? And I know that I will be labeled biased in this because obviously I'm no Blake Baker. Blake Baker leaves Missouri, goes to LSU, and a team that I cover, a team that I root for and I'm a fan of. But I do think that Blake Baker leaving is something that we have to keep our eyes on, even in the addition of Corey Batoon. Now, it's interesting. Corey Batoon was a defensive coordinator at South Alabama for Keith Womack, who's now the DC for Alabama. Those two guys will face off, or two teams will face off this year. Look, I just don't know, enough about Corey Batoon play calling wise. Now, he coaches safeties. He has been known to be a great coach for safeties. I just don't know or have not seen enough of him, even watching some stuff from South Alabama. Number one, was he the one really calling the plays defensively? Was he the one that had his hands in there? Obviously, Womack leaving South Alabama as the head coach, going to be the DC at Alabama. A lot of people in Mobile tell me that Womack was the one who had a lot of hands in this call, even calling some plays. So we'll see. Now, does Corey move into the SEC and try to replicate what Womack has done from a defensive side of things? Maybe. But I do think that has to be a concern. But having big-time departures from your program like J.C. Carlisle's and Darius Robinson, who had 8.5 sacks, and your leading tackler in Carlisle's, I just don't know if you have the depth there. Now, you got a lot of really good talent from the transfer portal. Maybe my concern for Missouri can be off there, and I could be wrong. I just don't think personally that you're going to be able to replicate completely what you did defensively this year like you did last year. Let me give an example. I don't know if there's a situation or scenario where you face a 8-9 win team like Tennessee where you could – I don't think Missouri could choke out Tennessee again this year like they did last year. I don't think that you can have the take or thought because you haven't seen Corey Batoon at a Power 5 program calling plays defensively. See, we've seen Baker before do it at Miami, which he got a lot of the criticism. Actually wasn't him. Actually, Manny Diaz was that guy. I just think Blake Baker's departure and Corey Batoon, along with a lot of the pieces that you're not going to have on the defensive side of the football, is a big concern to me. Let me end it with this here on Mizzou, because I look at their schedule. I say all that about their defense. Guys, the first half part of their schedule this year, this upcoming year, is a cakewalk. They play Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, who has a new head coach in Bill O'Brien. They have Vandy. So you start off in your first 4 games, arguably, with the easiest schedule in the SEC. Again, Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and Vandy. They're going to be 4-0. Now, after Vandy, they go to Texas A&M. As much turnover is at Texas A&M right now, I still think that could be a toss-up game. We have no idea what we're going to see from Alabama. A&M. You got Mike Elko, who's a really good defensive coach. They got a lot of good players out of the transfer portal. I lean Missouri going into College Station and getting that win, but man, it's not an easy place to play. It 1,000% is not an easy place to play. I think it could be a toss-up there in your first road trip going to Texas A&M. Would I be surprised at all if Missouri wins? Absolutely not. They have more pieces. They have better overall pieces, in my opinion, than A&M. So if I had to pick, I would pick Mizzou in that game versus A&M. So you're potentially at worst looking at 4-1, but I think that they'll be 5-0 there. But see, here's the thing. The week after A&M, they go to UMass. Win. They got Auburn at home. I don't think Auburn's got enough talent. I think that that's a win, especially with Peyton Thorne being the quarterback at Auburn. But you get through the first 7 games of your schedule if you're Missouri, and then you go to Tuscaloosa, which you likely and very likely could be 6-1, 7-0 going into Tuscaloosa. I don't know if you can go in there and win. Look, I know that Alabama's got a lot of turnover. I know this isn't Nick Saban's Alabama team. Kalen DeBoer just coached a Washington program that got to a national title. They still have a crap load of talent at Alabama. A crap load of talent. I think everybody looking at Alabama and saying to themselves that they're not going to be any good, because I don't agree with that. I can't envision as of right now on February the 26th, Missouri going into Tuscaloosa and winning. Now, could that just be that Alabama is so seared into my head of Nick Saban and greatness? 1,000% it could be. But, man, I got to tell you, Kalen DeBoer is an offensive wizard. He's been an offensive wizard. I think that they return a lot of pieces defensively that did not hit the portal. Now, Caleb Downs did, and I understand that. I just don't think you can go in Tuscaloosa and win. But you have Oklahoma at home, toss-up. You have South Carolina on the road, toss-up. You have Mississippi State and Arkansas to end the season. I think that you win. Guys, I look at Missouri from a talent perspective. I look at them from a just overall schedule perspective. I don't know how Missouri unless they completely implode and injuries happen, I don't know how the floor for Missouri wouldn't be 9-3. I think that they go 10-2, honestly. I think in this schedule, there's 10 wins that Missouri can get, barring if they stay healthy, even with what the defense may look like. I still think that they get 10 wins. So, the caption that we had that started the show asked, is Missouri going to be a one-hit wonder? Guys, I really doubt that they will be. I honestly think that Missouri is on track for having another season where they can get to 10 wins in the regular season. And if they – because, look, the only they don't play Georgia. They don't play LSU. They got Bama on the road, and they got Oklahoma. Guys, that might be the two toughest games that they have. And even – I mean, they got A&M on the road, and even that, I just don't know if I see more than 3 losses on this schedule. Which begs the question, if Eli Drinkwitz goes 10-2 in the regular season again, guys, they're going to be in the playoff, okay? They will be in the playoff if they go 10-2. They won't have to be they probably won't be in the SEC championship game. And the likelihood of them hosting a playoff game at home, very likely.